Hey there, it's Thursday afternoon. That means it's a summer Friday, and we're here to do the Connect This. This is a show in which we pride ourselves in keeping the intelligence out of it. So no artificial or natural intelligence as a part of this show. We've got our stalwart standard crew here, and we will soon be joined by a guest for the episode. But I'm Chris Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. Travis laughed out loud, so he gets introduced next. Travis Carter, USI Fiber over in Minneapolis. Welcome.
Well done, Mr. Mitchell. Well done. Shout out to Jay. Put on a really nice show here in town. Mr. Mitchell,
yeah.
Mr. Rye and I went to a very, very enjoyable Peering Summit in St. Paul, Minnesota.
The Midwest Peering Summit. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was a wonderful time. So thank you for the time. And the gentleman that we had dinner with was very fun.
Yes, with Matt Peterson.
Matt Peterson. Yes.
Jimmy Connors. I don't get the joke. Juan, I'm sure it's some joke that I should get, but
it's Jane Fonda, and I was trying to get it over to Rye, the peekaboo, to prove it.
Yeah, my hair gets in my face. Someone who does not have that problem is Doug Dawson. Welcome back to another show, Doug.
Are we hair shaming people right now on this show?
I used to have that problem, but I guess no longer. So I've never been in the top corner of the screen before. So this is a very momentous afternoon for me. So
lovely.
Doug, you wrote a fun piece about this Aleutian Islands-based company on a formal naval base shooting 250 small little satellites up into the sky pretty soon. We're not going to talk about it today, but I thought that was pretty cool. Did you have fun writing that?
It's really cool. It's every man's dream because it's essentially a giant catapult. I mean, who doesn't want this, right?
Yeah, like a vacuum. Is it like a vacuum in 5,000 miles an hour, I think you said?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's great. So I had to read it about 11 times before I believed it.
Excellent. And then we have Kim McKinley, always on the right track with TAC, Broadband. Welcome back, Kim.
I just need to ask a question. Is your opening joke about like regular intelligence and AI intelligence, did we have it for the existing crew? And then when our guest comes on, it's going to be like, she actually knows crap. So that joke doesn't work for her. Is that what I
was pretty much speaking for myself. I mean, I think, I'm here to make sure that you guys just don't talk over each other. You provide the intelligence, and I'm here to make sure that you don't throw food at each other, basically.
I thought you were here for the fashion sense, but okay, let's go back into broadband.
I do have my XKC, my Geek Cred shirt on. So I forget which one of this is. I've got a couple of them, but
your wife is a lucky lady today, Mr. Mitchell. That's all.
Yes, and I'll just say that
package today.
I'll just say that extortion can actually be a wonderful way to start off a relationship. So we have an agenda today. We're going to have Heather Mills joining us soon. I think I know that she was on a call that apparently has gone a little bit long, and she does real work, unlike me. So I'm assuming she'll come over as soon as she's ready to do that. We'll introduce her when she gets here. We're going to start off with fiber cuts as terrorism, a story that came out about Charter in particular. We're going to talk about the FCC and deciding that how it's going to grade the progress of the country is changing in terms of whether we're doing a good job with getting internet access out. We're going to talk about the big beautiful bill, what's beautiful, what is not. We're going to talk about BEAD and what we're learning, because a few of the states have finished up their benefit of the bargain round. And then we'll talk a little bit about this California broadband mandate, the affordable broadband mandate that will result in Travis saying that he just wants to make other things. He wants to set the prices for other things. I'm sure that will come up, but that bill is dead. And the person who killed it says that it's Trump's administration's fault. So we're talking about that. and then FEMA and ISPs. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to start with deliberate fiber cuts as terrorism. And this is something that came up. We talked about it briefly. I think I talked about it with a few other people. I don't remember if it was on the show or not. But I was curious if, Kim, did you have a reaction to this when you saw that Charter wanted to classify recent, not accidental fiber cuts, but what appear to be deliberate attacks on its network as terrorism?
I mean, I don't disagree. I think it happens. And I think taking down the communication system, whether it is in the US or external, I do think it's like terrorism, because taking down our comm systems takes down a lot, the lifeblood of America, which would be the internet. Did they go too far? I don't know. But I do agree that it is vandalism at minimum, but I could see it being classified as terrorism.
All right, we're going to bring Heather out. Hey, Heather, welcome. Oh, you're muted. Heather Mills, principal, the Summit principal consultant, principal consultant,
Tilson Technology Management.
Be careful, Travis, or we're sending you to the principal's office today, Travis.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome, Heather. I don't know why you keep agreeing to come on. I don't get it.
I love talking with you guys. I really do. Mostly with Doug and Travis, though.
Oh, take that. Open
I'm
season.
kidding. I'm so kidding, Kim.
Nope. We just broke up. Okay.
Never.
So I want to go to Travis next. Travis, I don't know if you saw the article, if you read my agenda that I actually gave you more than 10 hours notice with, but did you have a reaction to this argument about this being a terrorist attack?
I don't know. I guess I looked, my initial thought to it was, if you've got a properly built network, a single fiber cut should be very minimal impact. So I'm not sure if I would go as far as terrorist attack. Now, let's say there were 4 routes out of a city and you cut all of them at the same time. I would call that a terrorist attack. So
where is the line, Travis? Because I agree with you, but where is that line? Is it a backbone cable?
Yeah, I guess I kind of struggled with where is that line myself? Deliberate anything? Is it terrorism? Is it vandalism? It's pretty tall order to be a terrorist. That's where where I struggled.
Doug?
I think it's all down to the motivation. I mean, when Billy Bob shoots he's drunk on Saturday night and shoots his shotgun at the fibers on the line and the electric lines, it's not really terrorism. That's bad vandalism. But the guy who went and blew up the central office in downtown Nashville, clearly terrorism. There's a bunch of guys going out right now for political reasons, blowing up electric substations. There's definitely a line you cross, but I think it comes down to the motivation when you're trying to harm the public. When you're just, disgruntled employees go out and cut a fiber, that's bad, but it's not terrorism. Disgruntled employees do that to every business.
But when I was working at an ISP not too long ago, and I wasn't working at the ISP. I took a little break in that time period. They had 2 major fiber cuts on both sides of the interstate, the main cable and the redundant cable, right? That whoever did that knew exactly what they were doing and targeting, right? That could be considered terrorism, but a one-off, I think, is a different story, right? Like what you just said, Doug.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Heather?
This to me, when I read through that article and a couple of other things, it speaks very much to deterrence. It's a great legal question. Where is the line of domestic terrorism? We don't know what that is. It's going to go up through the courts in some way. And I think this is their first, not first, they've done a lot of this before, but they're trying to bring attention to this particular problem, but they haven't quite defined exactly what that problem is, which is where I say, it's really more of a legal conversation than anything. And I am no lawyer, but what I see is this is their way of trying to call the question on how can we deter potential domestic terrorism as it relates to their plant. And I don't think they're worried about copper anymore. They're really just worried about fiber cuts.
No, yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, this was like a fiber of 5,000 strands. It was a big deal.
It was a big fiber.
It was a big fiber, and I think one of the reasons that they're doing it is trying to get a fire lit under the butt of the authorities investigating it, right? I feel like they feel like if it's just treated as like vandalism, there's not as many resources that are put into trying to figure it out. I think that's one of the issues. But I want to move on unless anyone else wants to continue on that one.
I'll just add one piece of color that 99% of fiber cuts are usually because of poor marking, and they're accidental. So in that particular article, they talk specifically about a targeted attack, but there are areas in most major cities that if you cut one fiber line, it'll have major impact because that's the only route in and out of the area.
Right. And I just want to add to that, Travis, that there was a time, and I don't know if anyone else remembers this, a few years ago, where I believe there was a series of Comcast cuts in San Francisco that, again, were deliberate, where someone was targeting it. They had clearly had a plan of like how to get into these locations. They knew where they were vulnerable. That is a whole level that I feel like the federal government, local authorities, whoever, I mean, the local authorities, if it's not crossing state lines, I guess, should be investigating seriously. These are emergency services. Like, people can die with when these lines don't work. So it is a big deal.
One other item. So when the Super Bowl was in town, this was a big topic. When the Super Bowl was done, never been a topic since. So just to be clear about our priorities, right?
But I think this is going to become a bigger issue as you see more overbuilders coming into this space. I agree with you that it hasn't been a big conversation, but I think it has to be addressed because I think it's going to continue to exacerbate as we keep building these networks, especially where people are really struggling with take rates, and they're going to do anything they can in order to obtain those take rates. And sometimes it's malicious activity, in my personal opinion.
And so you, with the relation with the overbuilding, the new providers coming into an area, that you expect more accidental cuts? Do you think that would lead to more malicious?
I think there's going to be more malicious. You always like have the guy who doesn't market in their backyard breaks their fiber, right? That happens every day of the week. But I'm saying malicious cuts. As people get more desperate to get the customers, I think they're going to get a little more aggressive of how they can get the customers. And one of the things is taking down the other network's reliability.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And
so
that's going to be an even bigger issue as we see BEAD projects go to permitting, especially in states where there's multiple federal agencies where they're crossing lands like BLM lands. It's going to be essential that the ISPs that are there communicate with the ISPs who are installing. And what I can tell you is historically, they're not really excited about telling anybody where their actual plant is for just those reasons. But so now we're sort of entering, in my mind, in the stage of almost, dare I say it, community of ISPs working together in order to ensure that they're not cutting each other's fiber. But there may be bad actors out there too.
Come on, Heather, we cannot go straight to fantasy here.
We we're going to come back to BEAD and talk about whether it is a fantasy to think that anyone's going to be building any wires anywhere under BEAD. So that'll be a little bit later in the hour. Chairman Carr at the Federal Communications Commission has decided that the new policy of the FCC when it comes to the congressionally mandated yearly report on whether we are doing a good job expanding internet access is now to issue participation trophies to everyone. He does not like that the previous Biden administration under Rosenworcel tried to figure out whether or not the pricing was good and whether or not we were actually rolling out high quality services. From what I can tell, Chairman Carr would just like to basically see how many press releases have been issued about new services coming, and that will determine the reporting, apparently. This report is really not that big of a deal, honestly. Like, it's I don't know, like, if someone can tell me that I'm wrong, but I feel like this is one of those things where it's nicer to think about. It would be nice to have a real report. The report's mostly fantasy and offers an opportunity for people to say, hey, we should do a better job, or to argue about it, but it's not really going to change the deployment pattern, I don't think. Doug, looks like you're unmuted.
There has never been an honest FCC annual report to Congress. So, I mean, they basically pat themselves on the back for doing a great job. They never identify. The law says that if they identify a giant shortfall in broadband, they're supposed to take action to fix it. They've never concluded that they needed to take that action. So the reports are always
they did once.
Relations.
So I mean, this is one of those things also. Like I'll say this: this law was really poorly written, right?
Yes, it was.
So like there's a section 706 report where if the federal government or the state PUCs determine that the internet access is not being expanded sufficiently fast, they should take action to do so. What state public utility commission can take any action on any of this is anyone's guess. Like everyone I've ever seen read that section just scratch their head. This was like written in what, 1994, 1995, and like didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense now. So like, but there was the time, sorry, Doug, what I was going to say was that in 2014, 2015, Chattanooga and the city of Wilson petitioned the Federal Communications Commission to use this nebulous power to remove the barriers that prohibited the city of Wilson and the city of Chattanooga from serving their neighbors who did not have any internet access, and state law would not allow them to serve them. And so the FCC said, we're going to use this power. And then I want to say the 4th Circuit or the 6th Circuit shot it down. I forget. It must be the 4th, I think, shot it down. So then it died. But that was the one time I think they tried to use it, Doug.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the annual report. So the FCC does occasionally try to do something good,
but I thought they tried to use their 706 power. I could be wrong about the
Yes.
legal reasoning. So anyway, I don't know. Anyone has any thoughts on this? Heather, did you're giggling a little bit?
Sorry to be so diplomatic, Doug, but I understand where he's coming from as far as a conversation about the market. The content of that Ars Technica article and some of the quotes, I think, could be, I don't want to say taken out of context, but could be massaged in any number of ways to be saying any number of things. But this is, to me, his signal of leaning into the market, and we're expanding broadband everywhere. There's going to be better market opportunities, which means these people, these ISPs, should naturally be able to compete against each other and still make money, but by providing services that are quality services that people test out and decide whether or not they like, and if they don't like, they can move on to something else. That's what I read in that article. But I do understand the perspective of, it feels really callous to say, hey, it's important for everybody in the United States to be able to participate in the digital economy. How can we, as a government, what our purpose as a government is to provide services, how do we ensure that those people are able to participate in a meaningful way? And that's why I use the word callous. It feels really callous when we say, we'll let the market figure it out, but these people need help to participate in the market, period.
No, the part that, go ahead, Kim, I'll hold, go.
I just want to get back to the part of this conversation where I get a participation trophy.
This is that part. Carr literally said, unless this quote was manufactured by John Brodkin, who does not do that sort of a thing, not only is a long-term goal not mentioned in Section 706, but maintaining such a goal risks skewing the market by unnecessarily potentially picking technological winners and losers. This is literally the definition of a participation trophy, right? Like, we literally can't say that we want to set a goal of people having high-quality services because it would be bad for people that offer shitty service. That is what he is saying. Like, it's unreal to me. There was one point in which we all agreed the federal government should not pick winners and losers, right? And that meant that when the federal government was trying to figure out how to remove sulfur dioxide from the air in 1989 and 1988 because of the rain that was coming down, the acid rain and everything, they did not think that they had the expertise to figure out how to tell people to not stop putting sulfur dioxide in the air. They wanted to create a market incentive to change the technologies that were being used. It wasn't saying that we can't have a goal of freaking having high quality internet access everywhere. Like, it's just, this is so far bent out of shape with just people who only understand the talking point and have no idea what it was once meant by it. It's literally turning federal policy into a cargo cult. For those of you who aren't familiar, check it out.
Is this part of the Woodrow Wilson conversation? I just need to know.
No, we had no problem picking winners and losers back then. Go ahead, Doug.
Kim has not launched a rant in a long time. That was awesome.
I didn't expect to rant on that one. Now I've already, I'm out of rants now. So, but I just, like, I don't know, like, this drives me crazy to hear like this idea of like, we can't try to do important things because we might accidentally somehow discourage those who are providing terrible service from doing it. This is not what was ever meant by technological neutrality.
But to put a footnote on what you just said, what he just said basically still blesses DSL if you want to be actually interpret it. It's like it's all fine, right?
Yes,
So,
exactly. Yeah. Help
Yeah.
dial up. Like who's to say? Maybe there's a family that just wants to trade the occasional plain text email. Who's to say that we should try and do something better for them? Travis, did you want to weigh in at all? Should we just move on to the next one?
I have no opinion. Starlink. I'll just say that. Starlink. I'll get you really going. Give them Starlink.
We'll come back. And actually, there's a whole show on Starlink that we recorded this morning for next week on the community broadband bits. So based on some empirical testing and a variety of other things. All right. I'm going to skip to BEAD because that's not going to get me riled up. So we've had a few benefit of the bargain rounds, and I know Heather's paid some attention to this, but Doug just wrote about Tennessee. Rye had been paying close attention to what was going on in Tennessee. I found Tennessee kind of interesting. Doug, what did you write about Tennessee, which is moving ahead with the new approach of trying to figure out which providers are going to serve which locations?
well, they announced and put out called a spreadsheet. It's a PDF of all the people who had bid, and you can't entirely do a comparison because you don't know how many locations each one bid for. But what it shows is, I tried to do a side-by-side comparison. There was really only one wireless provider. I think he applied in like 9 of the 178 regions, and they were a third of the cost of fiber. The satellite guys came in at a tenth or even far less. I mean, they were way underneath the fiber providers' prices in almost all the places. Now, none of this really matters until they pick the winners. Just because the satellite guys came in lower doesn't mean they're going to give them the broadband. There was a lot of bids made by fiber providers. One of the biggest surprises in it to me was how much AT&T showed up. Everyone was always wondering if AT&T would jump in this, and they were there. So it's like, AT&T is asking for BEAD money to build rural fiber. Up until now, that was still a big question mark. Comcast, before the BEAD round, and they had an early BEAD round, they had asked for fiber. This time, they're mostly asking to build HFC copper plant. That was a very interesting change. It only made them a few percent cheaper, but they went for the change. So, so this is interesting, but until they pick winners, we don't really know what it means yet. So, yeah.
Do you think that Comcast did that because they thought like it was going to become a cost issue and then they might win if they went with the copper?
No, what that allowed them to do is they already have networks that abut these areas, and now they can just extend their copper lines without, they don't have to extend as much fiber to get into some of those neighborhoods. I think that's the reason, but some of these are really large areas, so they're proposing to build a whole lot of new copper lines in rural areas. It was an interesting change. They still did some areas of fiber. They didn't go to HFC everywhere. So, yeah.
Heather, can you remind us what comes next now in places like Tennessee, where they've done this round? The state now has to decide how to choose. It has some limits in terms of how it can make that choice.
So now it is. They're going to look at all of the bids. They're going to do the pricing step. The first step is where the lowest, who are bidding for the same things. Are they within 15% of each other? Then they will do secondary scoring related to overlaps for deconfliction purposes. The states individually, I think, as most people know, they had choices to make as far as what they could use for secondary scoring. And so it's going to vary from state to state. But ultimately, the puzzle that the state has to put together is, I like this turn of phrase, it's got to be the most cost efficient. And if you've spent any time in the E-rate world with USAC, you understand that cost efficient does not mean the least expensive. It means the solution that meets all of your needs and is still the most lowest cost while meeting your needs. That's how I'll explain it. So I don't know the nice thing. They have very little time to do this. Every state has very little time to do this. And what I'm seeing across the states is that they're trying their best to get to that final proposal as quickly as possible. And in some cases, I think we saw Texas ask for an extension, and I think that they were denied an extension, even though they were probably told that they wouldn't be denied. I don't know. I wasn't there for that conversation, but they have a very large lift And so what does that mean for their BEAD dollars if they're not able to get an extension on what they need to do? And basically what I'm seeing is, and stop me because I think, I could just keep talking. What I'm seeing is you have various different buckets of states who hadn't done anything, meaning they hadn't run around yet, states who had run around but not finished their final proposal, and states who had finished their final proposal and were waiting for final approval from the new administration to get going. And also you have to think about I'm going to say the detrimental effect of the policy notice that it had on all those teams across the country who had been working for 3 years at direction of the NTIA. I think we were talking about participation trophies earlier. Like, this was the worst kind of participation trophy. Thanks for doing all that work, everybody. We don't care. You need to get this done in 90 days to satisfy political needs, essentially. I think that's very hard to follow. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Heather. So I was talking to some people yesterday who are applying for BEAD. They want to build fiber. They are pretty expensive per passing. And they said to me, well, we're still hopeful. And I'm like, because they were like, we have our legislator support. And I said, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your legislator wants. It's more of what NTIA wants. Are you seeing people who are a little bit delusional that they still have a chance for this with the new BEAD regulations? Or do you think that people are pretty realistic?
And would you tell us if any of your clients were delusional?
That is fair. That is fair.
I would not tell you, although I would say probably most of us already are delusional anyway. It doesn't really matter. Ask your question again, Kim.
So let me take a quick shot at it. So one of the things that we've seen is a couple of states, I think, have finished up the time period in which new entities could say they wanted to bid who had not before. Like, I think Maine has done this, and like Rye will correct me if I got that wrong, and they didn't really see any new entrants. So that's one thing, is that we were curious if we would see states have new entrants. And so Kim was asking, I think, whether or not one would be delusional if you were pushing a fiber network, and whether you should expect that you're just not going to be competitive.
Like this one was looking at $9,000 per passing, and I was like, how the heck are you ever going to get like BEAD money with the new regulations when, even if you have like your legislator support, it comes down to NTIA, right? So I don't know.
That sort of bears itself out in how the state has decided what their secondary scoring is and how they're going to approach it, one. And two, I think that while we have tech neutrality from the RPN, I think that's a pretty high bar for some types of technologies to get to. So I don't think that they're delusional to continue on. I don't think that anybody who wants to participate in BEAD is delusional, because we don't know what the final puzzle will look like for any state. And it's, as you said, it's going to depend on density. It's going to depend on rurality in general. There are a swath of Western states who they knew they were going to have to utilize LEO satellite for some of those locations anyway. And part of the pause that they had was if the government was going to tell them precisely how much they were going to have to use LEO or others for. So I think some people with a policy notice, some got what they wanted. They wanted to play in the pool with everybody else. And that means that they have a whole lot of work to do in a very short amount of time to show that their technology can meet the standards required and rise above the pack as far as scalability and other things, depending on what secondary scoring comes into play. Some states are taking a very interesting approach of, I'm going to say malicious compliance is sort of the right way, because essentially what we've set up, if it's a cost basis win for the first piece of it, then that's a reverse auction to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. So
I want to ask about that. Technologies proving themselves. And I want to ask Travis, you monitor this stuff. You're a partisan of Starlink, I think almost entirely because of my my doubts about it have reinforced your strong positions of Starlink. How do you feel about Kuiper? I mean, do you want to see billions of dollars go to Kuiper based on what we know about its ability to serve people? I'll give you that Starlink is serving 2 million American residences right now, or 2 million locations. What do we know about Project Kuiper, and how comfortable should we be with the fact that it's the lowest bidder in most of Tennessee, it looks like?
Well, it's a good question. I guess I would probably refer that to Doug. Doug, do you have any idea how much spectrum Kuiper has? Because we can give whatever name we want, but if the spectrum's not there, then it's going to be a problem.
They don't have as much as Starlink has, because Starlink was able to win extra spectrum, which Kuiper was not part of that decision yet. So, but I'm sure that if they win these, that they'll be asking for more spectrum, and they'll probably get it. But one thing I failed to mention in summarizing what's happened in Tennessee, the satellite guys bid everywhere. They bid not everywhere, because there's a few places that nobody bid, including them.
But that's like 20%, right? 25%.
But I mean, about a third of Tennessee is mountainous and full of trees. Another third of it is full of trees, and then there's a third of it that would be more like farmland. I found it amazing that they bid on the mountainous parts of Appalachia.
We're trying to figure out
that alone is a big argument in my house, because I say Appalachia and my wife says it should be Appalachia.
Yeah, definitely Appalachia. But why did they not bid on those other 25% of locations? Do you have any sense?
No, because those were the most rural. That was very odd that they did not, and that's the places where nobody bid. I don't know why. So, yeah, they'll end up getting those. I think what they're hoping for is the state will have to throw them extra money for those or something. I don't know. So,
Heather,
I think building it is one thing, or making it available is one thing, but the appetite for satellite is, I think you probably talked about this on your other thing today, is I don't think it's really there. A lot of people do not trust satellite. I know, Travis, you have a different opinion, and other people who use satellite may have a different opinion, but that isn't the, say, one majority opinion in the market. And in a lot of places, we're only seeing an uptake of like 3%. I think that was the number that I heard from Maine at one point for LEO satellite on a really aggressive program. So I don't know how, well, I do know, if they win a bunch of sites and they're not able to show, how do I explain this? All the grant does is provide reservation capacity, and they have to do it within 4 years, and they won't get any of that money if they don't actually provide the reservation capacity there. So there's a number of fail-safes in place that states will have to ensure that they can ultimately get service to those sites, but it's going to play out in a really weird way as part of a compliance process, I fear. What
will Starlink or Kuiper have to demonstrate in order to prove that it has reserved that capacity?
They have to show, there's a technical spec that they have to show, as I recall. I'm not an expert on this piece of it, Chris, but there's definitely.
If you were an expert, you would have said that you were busy and wouldn't have come.
Yeah, here you go. That's really nice.
Sorry, we went 15 minutes without self-deprecating.
Yeah. Thank you very much. No, there's definitely technical specifications that they'll have to meet, and I know we've got teams of people who are being readied to help our clients make those determinations. Specialists on our engineering team and others who would be, helping our clients work through that process. So,
yeah, they have stuff like they have to be able to provide X number of megabits per every customer in the whole service area. Also, there's a whole long list of technical requirements, and the satellite guys have a longer list of more requirements they have to meet. So, but of course, again, they could win the tentative grant, and again, we don't know if they meet it for 4 years. So that I don't know what happens to those people after that. So, yeah.
So we've said this before, Doug, but I want to get your temperature on this. NTIA set a bunch of requirements in BTOP. Didn't follow through on them, really. The USDA, not USDA, the Federal Communications Commission set up requirements for CAF and didn't even pretend to follow through on them. Should we believe that these requirements are going to be met? I mean, Heather used the term fail-safe. I feel like I don't know that I would use that term.
Well, let's step back a step before that, because Heather described the next process, but she missed an important step in there. NTIA has told the states that they have the ultimate decision for each and every grant award. And so let's just say that Tennessee takes a very aggressive approach and they want to award a third of the state to fiber. And they can do that and go, here's what we want to do. And the NTIA can go, no, because if this is a reverse auction, satellite won the entire state of Tennessee. It's that straightforward. In fact, Kuiper, there's only 3 or 4 where Starlink v. Kuiper, but mostly Kuiper wins the whole state of Tennessee. And that is not very good headlines. So it's going to really be how aggressive NTIA wants to do it. They have all the cards here. The state can do whatever they want, but they can be completely overridden by NTIA, or NTIA could just let their choices go through. We don't know. We have no idea.
That's 100% accurate. I don't disagree, and you're right. I did miss that point in the thing, but I think it would be very, very politically bad for NTIA's team to go in and line edit grants and then not provide clear justification for their line edits. Because whatever they do, if they reject a final proposal, then they'll be back and forth and potentially legal action over that, right? It could be very messy in that regard.
Okay, but like Heather, you're like making this point that everybody's going to be legit and like have morality when they are looking at these awards. I mean, is that? I get what you say that they shouldn't do it, but I mean, a lot of the things that have happened, everybody said that BEAD couldn't be changed because of the legality of it. So, is that really the case?
Well, but we don't know what NTA is going to do. They could come in Tennessee and they could go, I tell you what, we're going to give every award that's $4,000 or less for fiber. Everything else goes to someone lower. We don't know what they're going to do. So they could have a rationale for allowing some of this to fiber. If they do that, almost all of this fiber looked to be expensive to me. So it didn't look like any really cheap bids here. There was a couple that might have been fairly inexpensive, but we don't entirely know because we don't know exactly who each of these guys bid to serve. But
I want to move.
We're not going to find out. We're not going to find out till around the 1st of September. We're just not going to know. So right now it's a giant black hole.
So Juan says folks that have no option, they have DSL or old HughesNet will jump at the Starlink option. Ryan says absolutely true. Having used all those in my lifetime, that the 30 meg down, 20 up that he has in the middle of Montana is amazing. I just want to point out, I said this before and I got in trouble with Viasat. There was a person on a thing with Viasat and they were talking about how amazing their geostationary service was and they'd improved it and everything else. And I said, there are 10 million homes in rural America that desperately want decent internet service, and nearly all of them have chosen not to take your service. There's a reason why. The service from Starlink has been available for years. There's no way they're not aware of it. It's constantly getting great media coverage about how it's amazing and everything else. They have 2 million subs in the United States. So I don't know. I mean, I'll just say that empirically, Juan, you're wrong. Like, it is a better service, and there's no doubt about that. But like Heather said, I don't know if it is for a good reason or a bad reason, but people are choosing not to adopt Starlink. There is a market signal here, and people are supposed to pay attention to that in a market economy. I think it's interesting that people are just ignoring that to be like, oh no, people are going to love this. Well, they have the choice. They're choosing not to love it right now. Something's going on.
That's a half a grant. That's a half a rant. Just guys.
It is, but I mean, like, it's not because I think Starlink is bad. It's that like there's literally like information out there that we are just ignoring as though it's not happening.
Well, and they couldn't serve all of rural Montana. They can't do it. So.
True.
Heather, then
but this brings us back to the conversation about affordability. Satellite services are distinctly more unaffordable than other things. I don't know about unlicensed fixed wireless or other, and what I'm talking about is to the user. So just to get onboarded with one of those, you have to put $500 out of your pocket, or in this case, if they're getting BEAD money, it's free for the, because they have to include it. But the $100+ a month for service that meets the requirements of BEAD is a lot of money, and that's part of the reason that I think that there's a lower uptake of that.
Yeah, Travis, I mean, if FWA came through Verizon or T-Mobile came to Juan's house with $60 a month, 200 megabits, he would swap in a second. I mean, it would be half the price and 5 times the speed. So it's a matter of having options. Starlink is better than no option. Absolutely, Gary.
Travis?
Well, I'm going to use my terribly unscientific view of this. Since the vast majority of us get our entertainment from our internet service at our home, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, but you got to remember there's 18 million DirecTV Dish Network customers in the United States. The vast majority of them are rural. So if they're already receiving their entertainment and they're used to it and they're used to the user interface, their internet usage is generally substantially lower than the expectation that we would have in the metro area. So I think a lot of these people don't switch because they're already paying $200 a month for DirecTV. And if they got rid of DirecTV, Starlink would be a very economical option for them. But they're going to keep their DirecTV because they're used to it. We saw this in rural Wisconsin, that they're fine with DSL because all they do is check email and look at CNN or Fox or whatever they do online. They're not heavy users of the internet, but they're heavy consumers of entertainment. So
I wonder if that's within an age range as well, because I feel like
you're 100% right, Heather. 55 and older, that's it.
I love how politically correct you are with that. Are they of a certain age range? We knew where you were going with that.
They're us, except for or me and Mitchell at least.
I know my
way
big
to
problem
backstep that, Travis.
Yeah, Heather's 25, like Kim is.
Yeah. So my theory is as they age out and as younger people are taking over I guess I'll call it the farms, that the demand on internet service will go up exponentially. And I use Starlink on the RV. And then, final point to backtrack, I did look up the spectrum allocation for Kuiper and Starlink. Starlink is a country mile ahead of Kuiper on capacity currently. So they're going to really have to do a lot to get more spectrum to be viable.
So to Heather's point earlier, for people who are tracking it, states would likely take that into consideration when they're determining how many locations to award to different services. Heather, you were saying something before I decided to make a comment about age because I wanted to get into trouble.
Piling on to your comment about age and Travis's comments as well. One of the things, I'm not quite that old. I'm not quite 25, but I'm not quite 55 either. And I know I get particular joy when I travel because I get to stay in hotel rooms that have what I'm going to call old-fashioned cable, where I can doom scroll 10 minutes at a time through the cable thing. And I can't do that through the apps now. Like I die a little every time I open Netflix. Not that I don't love Netflix, but I like to scroll. And that's how I grew up, that was our doom scrolling time. So I miss the old cable television in that way. And none of our current iterations of, I'm going to say, television entertainment fills that gap in the same way.
I feel like we are broken in different ways, Heather. But I thought Netflix was adding a kind of thing for that kind of user of random content and such. I could be wrong.
I didn't know that people miss that. Like, let's just be honest. Who missed like pushing their button like over and over besides Heather? You're the only one.
No, everybody of
now
an
you're
age.
just mad at me because I didn't say that you were my favorite person to talk to about. I love
I'm going
you
to
so
disagree.
Much. Forget about it.
All right. Moving on, as I attempt to continue to be the angry young man Billy Joel wrote about. The big, beautiful bill passed, and it isn't just adding trillions to the debt and kicking people off healthcare. It's doing other things too. One of them good, one of them bad that we wanted to cover. So I wanted to first have Travis. He made an offhand comment when we were talking that the advanced depreciation changes are a big deal for companies like his. So rather than just sitting here and complaining all the time, I thought I'd actually let us talk about something positive. Travis, what's going on and why do you want to advance your depreciation so much?
Well, so historically, we depreciate our fiber assets over 15 years. This bill allows us to expense them to help mitigate our tax liability, either depending on how your business is structured, either individually or at a corporate level. So it's all upside from a financial perspective.
So sorry, just to be clear about this, because this drives me nuts. If you're making $1,000 and you have $100 of expenses, because these are expenses that are going to be in use over many years, you weren't able to deduct $100 of expenses from those $1,000 of revenue previously. You would have to deduct some small amount of revenue this year, another small amount next year, and so on and so forth. Now you can get it all back at once. So next year you have more money to build. Is that the layman's version of it?
Yeah, in theory, but you have to have a tax liability. So if you've got a business with a tax liability, this helps mitigate your tax liability. If you're set up as an LLC or an S corp where the tax liability rolls up to you individually. Now, again, I'm not a CPA or an accountant. I just play one on TV.
Not yet. You're working on it.
Yeah, that would roll up to you individually to help mitigate your personal income tax, which then indirectly, if you're an owner operator, good owner operators would reduce their salary to offset that tax liability, and then those funds would be used to expand the network. That's what we used to do every now and then when this would come around. That's how we would operate. So the dream scenario is expensing these assets in year one, and then the second dream scenario at the state level is to have these assets be tax free. If you had that, would be a double whammy that would put more dollars in to continue building.
Yeah, I was complaining because I feel like AT&T was like, oh, this is going to be such a big deal for us. We're going to be able to build so much more. And they say that about everything. They lie all the time about what they're really doing. They never pay any taxes. Like, it doesn't change anything. So I'm just going to not be super concerned about that. And I'm just going to celebrate that, Travis, you'll have some more money to build, we hope.
I thought you were going to make this positive, and then you just digressed right into the negative there, Chris.
It's where I am. It's been a hard summer, Tim.
But he's right. He's right. AT&T pays almost no income tax, so there's no real benefit to them from this. That was a very odd thing.
But hold on. Let's be crystal clear on this. Their massive employee base pays a tremendous amount of tax.
Oh, yes, but not the company. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what. I mean.
Well, hold on. What do you think is a lot?
Do you want to take credit for all the taxes that your employees pay, Travis? I guess what you're saying is that there is a huge benefit to the government revenue because they have a company in which their employees pay taxes. I'm not sure how that's related to what they're investing.
$4.5 billion in taxes last year to the federal government. So I don't know.
Who did?
AT&T.
Well, but if you look back for 10 years, there's like 3 of the years where they had zero. They've been very good at often getting out of all income taxes. So.
Yeah, 2018 they only paid $354 million. So I think just saying they don't pay any is.
This is where I would say, Travis, you not being a CPA and me also not, I wouldn't take that for real. I mean, these companies are constantly revising their earnings. The tax code allows them to go back and change, their taxes in all kinds of ways. I mean, I wouldn't say for sure that you could know what their taxes are through a super simple internet search unless you're really tracking it pretty closely. I mean, when I look at the investigative journalists and what they uncover about these companies, is usually not what you find with a simple search.
No. What they say is that before they take all of the deductions, depreciation, expenses, they had a tax liability of $20 billion. They only paid $4.5. So you got to kind of read how a lot of these articles are, but they still are paying a tremendous amount in taxes. Plus all the employees and the taxes they're paying, the withholding taxes. Don't say there's no shortage of taxes coming out of these businesses. So I just want to be.
Let's put it this way. There used to be a lot more coming out of those businesses. And it is remarkable, as Doug says, how many years go by that they pay $0 in taxes directly.
And in big investment years, they pay very little in taxes. Yes, because they're investing those dollars into infrastructure. And now with this bill, they can expense that. It's a good thing. So it's
maybe they are, or maybe they're engaging in tricks with the nation of Ireland. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things that are going on.
Repatriating capital is a whole nother conversation. So, yeah.
They're probably using this extra money to buy back stocks. So, yeah.
Well, hold on. Is Mitchell still a stockholder or not? So,
it depends on the given day. I'm actually trying to get Starlink so I can do more day trading.
Okay. Nice.
And if you listen to our show next week, you'll find out why that's not true, because Starlink latencies suck compared to most other services. Kim, were you going to say anything? All right.
No.
Travis and I were rolling back and forth with our CPA argument, and I wasn't sure if we.
And again, I'm not a CPA, so if I got half of it wrong, I apologize. I just am parroting what my guys tell me. So.
I didn't know we were at a tax discussion show today, so I'm just going to keep quiet until we move on to broadband. But keep going, Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, it's weird for us to talk about something we don't know a lot about. So the other piece of the BBB, the negative piece that I wanted to highlight is something that Sean broke the story on more or less nationally, I think, on our team, Sean Gonsalves, that they are clawing back funds. They're reducing funds to SNAP families. So if you have, if you are in a family that you might have a job that doesn't pay very much, or you might not be able to work, you get SNAP benefits for food. It used to be that if you had home internet access, the money you spent on that home internet access did not count against your benefit. Now it does. And so families that are on SNAP getting that benefit will get less money if they have home internet access. I don't think there's any defense for that. It's ridiculous. But I wanted to make sure people saw that article that Sean put out. Go ahead, Doug.
Now, the strange thing about this is this already matches what they're doing for Section 8 housing, for example.
Say that again. You faded out a little bit louder.
This already matches what the federal government does for Section 8 housing, which is way more expensive than your rent's way more expensive than your internet. They've never counted broadband as a utility, so it's never counted to help those folks, pay a lower amount of rent. So this kind of brings it in line with how they're doing everything else. Is it nice or fair? No, it's a terrible change, and it's a shame that they're doing it. But the biggie is rent, and they do exactly the same thing for rent, and they have for 20 years. So.
Yeah, I'll say that on the subject of housing, I feel like housing is an issue that prevents us from solving all other issues, education, transportation. There's so many issues wrapped up in this. It's a local and federal and state failure all across the board. And I'd like to see government taking a more honest approach to it, and it would make all the other issues that we have to solve a lot easier. I want to move on into FEMA. Doug, you wrote this. I've been interested in FEMA since I helped with flood relief in the Red River when I saw the damage that water can do to multiple cities with the Red River in like 96, 97, those floods. I've always been fascinated at this. We talked about it briefly in the show about Starlink. That's I just keep previewing for y'all next week, Community Broadband Bits. Doug, what's happening with FEMA and ISPs?
Well, now we actually don't even know what's happening with FEMA, because it was going to be abolished, and now it's not being abolished so much. And so we don't even really know what's going on. But when it was being abolished, one of the things that FEMA's done over the years that nobody in the general public even realizes is it doesn't automatically pay for network damages, but utilities and fiber companies can apply to get it, and they often do. And so FEMA has helped to repair some very major storm, fire, flood damages before. I had a client in Oregon who one of those giant fires a few years ago just burned up miles and miles and miles of their fiber. FEMA helped to reconstruct it. I've had hurricane victims who it's helped them to get back on their feet. And so if FEMA is not automatically there are a lot of ISPs who can't go and make those repairs out of their own pocket. And that's the threat. That's the problem. And so right now, everybody marches forward and they bring all the people in from out of town, and everybody makes the fixes knowing that a year later, they're all going to get reimbursed. And without knowing that safety net is there, I'm not so sure how many people are going to show up to do the work. Because we always go, isn't that great? All those guys came from Wisconsin to help fix my network here in North Carolina, but they get reimbursed for that work. And so, not that that's why they came. They came because they're altruists. But the fact is, they do eventually get paid back for some of that effort. Not all of it, but they get paid back for some of it. And so, but I can literally picture some of these small rural ISPs who get wiped out, and they're going, I don't have any money. I'm just not going to put the network back. Or electric companies, same thing. So.
Yeah, so this is one of those things we've talked about before, because people will ask, why don't you have insurance? And as you cover in that article, and as we talked about before,
network.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, at a certain point, you're just totally
they want an insurance premium of 5% of the cost of your network every year. You can't insure these giant networks. You can't buy that policy. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I mean, go ahead, Heather.
Sorry, I have to wonder though. We've seen this sort of cycle with the new administration with the Doge project, which I think is all done now to a certain extent. And I used the word callousness earlier. And I think it sort of plays through here. It feels like the administration didn't really understand what FEMA did
Right.
And so they marked it as a thing that because it was an enigma, it needed to go away. And I don't understand necessarily the other political through lines where FEMA became this evil entity, which is what the impression that I've gotten from the media these days and how they've been treated. But what we've also seen is that whiplash effect in a number of agencies, and the administration cut people indiscriminately without really understanding what the job that they were doing was, and that impacted services. And to a certain extent, we know that was by design, but also to a certain extent, it was just stupid. It was just stupid. So
yeah, I mean,
there's no planning here.
One of the reasons I find this interesting is because 20 years ago and 5 weeks, or no, I should say 20 years ago minus 5 weeks. And in 5 weeks, it will be 20 years since you all became familiar with Hurricane Katrina. And then Katrina went from being the name of someone I tried to date in 9th grade to being, the storm that brought down the Bush administration, arguably. It was
20
disastrous.
years and 5 weeks. I lived on the Gulf Coast. That was 20 years ago. Wow, I feel like
20
a little
years.
old. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be the end of August, early September is when it happened in 2005. And
she's still only 25 years old. This is amazing.
The Bush administration had put a joker in charge of it and felt like it wasn't important. And it was the botched reaction to that. Remember Heck of a Job, Brownie? These are things that, like, if y'all were reading blogs back then, like, it was a big deal. And it really resulted in the Bush administration, like, losing support month after month after month until he exited office, kind of a bit of a disgrace. So this stuff is serious. People respond to natural disasters in lots of weird ways.
Now, to be fair to the federal government, their plan was to eliminate FEMA, have the feds do it. And then when Congress approved disaster funds, they were to just hand it to the states. Theoretically, they would get the same amount of money. The fact is the states have no idea how to fix an emergency. They don't have the people or the infrastructure or the method. So there would be no way for the state to figure out how to fix a utility that was broken. They just don't have that expertise. So it was going to fall on its face. So theoretically, they didn't kill the funding. They said Congress has to approve it each time, and then the money just goes straight to the state coffers. Well, that was a very poor plan. And again, they've reversed themselves to some degree, and now we don't even know to what degree. So, but right now it's in limbo. So
one of the other things we talked about in this upcoming Community Broadband and Bits show, did I mention that we did a show in which we're talking about satellite services? Is that Starlink is so important.
Bits what? The bit what show? What's that?
Community Broadband Bits. It's a thing. We're doing it every other week, so it's twice as good. People are responding to natural disasters with their Starlink kits, and they're overwhelming the local capacity to deliver services. We've seen that in California and in Texas most recently from local reports.
So what do you think about that, Chris?
I think, well, I mean, this is the thing, right? Travis, remind us what happened when the bridge went down, right? Like, local providers responded quickly. You responded, Comcast responded. I think it's important that, like, we keep that in mind for responding to disasters where we have nearby wireline infrastructure. But Travis, you set up service when the 35 bridge went down, right?
Correct. I guess what we got to think about in these large natural disasters, if the backhaul fiber cables in and out of the state get damaged, it doesn't matter what you do as the local provider, you might be dead in the water. So I guess I'm not familiar enough with what happened there, but if the backhaul between, like, Minneapolis and Chicago got hit, a lot of ISPs in this state are going to have a lot of problems.
What would happen there, Travis? Let's assume for a second there was somewhere along, I don't know if it's along the 94 corridor or what, if there was a significant disruption that was not able to be repaired within a few days for whatever reason, what would happen to Minnesota, which depends so heavily on that Chicago connection?
Yeah, Chicago, there's three main routes out of the Minneapolis. If, let's just say, they all got taken out, there's nothing you as the local provider could do other than just maybe answer the phone if it was working and say sorry. I mean, there's literally nothing.
So you said three main routes, right? If the route between Minneapolis and Chicago went down, you could still go south to Kansas City or whatever. But it's not sized appropriately, right? So what happens when that happens?
That is ISP by ISP if it's sized appropriately. This is where small ISPs really struggle because they don't have the financial wherewithal to have a fully redundant network. versus the larger companies that might have their own fiber routes that are independent from the main routes. But it's when you say that, it's very hard to understand what actually happened. And in a lot of areas, they'll only let you cross the river at one spot, right? So everybody comes to that spot and goes across because there's some environmental reasons, there's some issues. And let's say that bridge gets hit, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a long while.
Yeah. And there was a question about wireless backup. There's no wireless backup that can handle the capacity.
No.
We would need Starlink. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but remember, Chris, we talked about this because, we talk about Starlink and wireless. They're basically the same thing. Remember when your
it's quite literally wireless.
Yeah. When your fiber went out and everyone started using their Verizon hotspots, the exact same happened in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget, Starlink has Earth stations, and they probably send their stuff across that same bridge. They're cut off.
Exactly it. Wireless is only wireless till it hits the fiber. So that's all it is. Yeah.
Any thoughts about FEMA, Kim, Heather?
I mean, I don't really have any thoughts. I think natural disasters, they're a hard thing. I lived on the coast a lot of my life. I actually was flying during Katrina. Funny enough, Chris, I was flying from Houston to Pensacola, Florida, and that was an interesting adventure back in those days. But I think that FEMA is a good agency. I think there is some criticism around it, but I agree with Doug that putting it in the state's hands is not the right solution either, because then they're already short-staffed, and adding that to their onto their plate is not effective. So I don't have as much.
I'm at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. Generally, I'm in favor of pushing responsibility and authority down. But the idea that that a state that just suffered a massive hit to its infrastructure should be the one that pays for it. To me, it seems like the benefit of having such a large, varied nation is that we do help each other out in those circumstances. So I would like to see the federal government continue to be involved in this, which is what, Doug, you were saying would more or less potentially happen with Congress assigning the funds. But it's still that expertise. You don't want to have 50 different teams all training separately and differently on how to respond to these things.
I also think this too. I think ISPs have to have a natural response, disaster response recovery plan, right? At TAC, and I'm not sure about this from Tilson's perspective, we do a lot of damage and repair work from storms, right? So a lot of these companies are in preparation of knowing who their partner is if they do have a natural disaster happen, because it is part of the planning of it. So it's not like everybody's just sitting and waiting back for it. There are a lot of proactive people out there for these kind of events as well.
Doug, you might know though, what happens in a natural disaster with permitting? Because that's usually one of the biggest problems.
I know that after Katrina, they waived a lot of that for about a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did in Pennsylvania too. I mean, I think that's the model.
Did they do it right away?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
By declaring an emergency, that's generally how that happens. We saw it included in a couple of places too, where states had to figure out how to use that money, the stimulus money. And so they declared emergencies so that they could get around a lot of the paperwork that was going to be that way too.
Yeah, because that would seem to me to be a natural question. If there was a disaster came through, you want to get as little bureaucracy involved as you can and get out there and start fixing.
Yeah, I think Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania is sort of the model for that. I'm sure there's a couple of others when the
Westmore in Maryland with the Baltimore Bridge, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Where they're responding rapidly. And in Minnesota, I think we did really well, Travis, with the bridge, getting that back up inside of a year. That was pretty impressive.
I'm with you. It was actually quite amazing to watch how quick it went.
The state of California was toying around with the idea of enforcing a low income plan. We talked about it on numerous previous shows. We had Shayna England on to talk about it. And that bill is dead. What's interesting is the assemblywoman who pushed for it has said that it was the NTIA that threatened California with losing its BEAD funds if they created an Affordable Broadband Act type program, that they would lose those funds. We can't find any evidence of that. So we've talked to a number of different people. It's not in writing anywhere. We kind of think that maybe this was just a ego-saving statement from the assembly person who did not want to explain the real reasons why they killed the bill. Doug, it looks like you had a thought.
Yeah, because NTIA has not been bashful about publishing letters of these kind of threats. So I can't imagine it really happened. I mean, if they did that on a phone call, is that really a threat? I don't. There really hasn't until actually today. There hasn't been anyone in charge of the NTIA.
Who at NTIA is talking to assembly people? Like, who's talking to
Right.
state legislators? Like, I don't think they have time to respond to the state broadband office. I don't know, but like,
Yeah.
I don't think they're going out of their way to talk to other people.
This doesn't sound like something that probably happened to me. So yeah.
All right, just wanted to throw that out there. Don't worry, reason to go further on it. Altice borrowing $1 billion against its cable assets in a new financing arrangement. I don't know. This article seemed to think it was a big deal with infrastructure.
Well, it's a big deal. It might stop them for another 6 months from being bankrupt. That's about how big the deal is. This company's in big trouble.
And this is a company that I think would be irrelevant if not for the fact that they serve a large number of New York City residents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they
but,
serve
like,
a lot of other fairly decent cities too around the country. So yeah. So
are we
And they-
talking about the Altice bankruptcy and from like the European one, or are we talking about like America Altice?
no, this
'Cause
is
they're two
this is the
things. Okay.
American one, and the company's limping along, and they're facing gigantic balloon notes that they can't refinance. So
I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and they said this is just, they were like, Altice, the European version, is declared their bankruptcy, but this person said America wasn't too far behind from their perspective.
everyone I know agrees with that. Yeah.
Travis, did you find anything interesting in the financing?
No, I really don't have an opinion on it, to be honest with you.
All right. And then the last thing was T-Mobile has too little fiber to support its mobile future. I thought that was kind of interesting. T-Mobile was the one that I thought was being a little bit more aggressive about buying some of the fiber ISPs and such. But then it's hard to find another frontier to buy like Verizon is doing. So, Doug?
Well, this is an interesting statement because it's not talking about last mile fiber. It's talking about fiber to cell sites. What everybody forgets is about 10 years ago, Verizon went on a rapid tear to build fiber to their cell sites that they own. Now they've turned around and let somebody else run some of that fiber after they build it, but they still have exclusive use of it. And so they have guaranteed cheap backhaul to a whole lot of cell sites. And T-Mobile does not have that. T-Mobile almost everywhere pays the market rates for backhaul. And so it's the fiber to cell sites that matters. T-Mobile has a lot of fiber, but it's to people's houses now. But that has nothing to do with their cell sites. But they were not in that business 10 years ago. Remember, they were a fledgling company. They were still what was their old catchphrase? The uncarrier. I mean, they're a very different company now. So yeah.
Doug, you said 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that you thought Starlink's primary revenue stream, I mean, I might be inserting a little bit here, but you thought a significant amount of their revenue would be satellite to tower backhaul for remote and rural wireless. Are you seeing that happen? Do you still think there's
they are doing a hair of that, but there's some of the other satellite guys who are going to do more of that. There's a couple of them. That's their business plan. There's actually like 15 different satellite broadband companies. Most of them you never heard of because they're very specialty like that.
Yeah, they're like Tokyo to New York City in like 3 milliseconds type thing. It hasn't really happened a whole lot here yet, but that's going to be a big business. But their problem is bandwidth. You know, they can supply maybe 2 gigabits to a rural cell site. That's becoming too little. That's the problem. 3 years ago, that sounded wonderful. Now that sounds kind of small. So, yeah. Any other thoughts from anyone about any subject at all?
Yeah, let's talk about the headband again.
I need to start getting some messaging, right? Some branding.
Well,
Yeah, you lost the opportunity to sell advertising space.
I know why he did it today. Hulk Hogan passed away. So is that your Hulk band?
Are you kidding?
He did.
No.
Yeah.
He did.
I just saw the notice come through.
Yeah.
He did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hulk, Ozzy Osbourne, and Theo Huxtable.
Oh, we got another one too. I just got it. It was Chuck Mangione just died
Oh.
too.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
It's been
Hard
a,
being
stay inside.
25.
it's been
Stay,
a,
stay inside in a padded room, everyone. It's dangerous out there.
it's been a week.
Yeah, I'm not going to tear my shirt off in honor of the, but also because I think Commissioner Carr or Chairman Carr might come after me for indecency if I was to do that.
No.
Oh, he's coming after you for
you
many
know,
other reasons than
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Don't worry. We'll go get you, Chris, if you do that. So.
Well, I appreciate your time, your attention, your patience in dealing with me as we recounted another 3 weeks worth of stories. I expect we'll be back in another 2 or 3 weeks. We will see how it goes, but I am trying to spend a little bit more time swimming with the young one than I am thinking about work. So, yeah.
Well
And
done.
also, I did just get my hair cut, so this is as good as it gets. So this is just for the record. Thank you, everyone.
No more chicken wings. I'm gonna start buying you haircuts. So,
With my chicken wing appetite, that might actually be cheaper for you.
all right.
Thank
See
you
you
all.
guys. Thank you.
Been a wonderful episode of Connect This.